Vaughn, I greatly appreciate you all and listen to Vaughn and Vaughn. It's almost like we have our own show, Vaughn and Vaughn in the morning.
Me too, Ronnie.
I thank you for setting that the tone for us and really understand the differences of mental health and mental illness experiences between men and women. With this conversation about the father, the son, and the brother, it's really unique for me because I operate in all three of those roles right now. I am a father of two young boys, a son, of course, and also a brother to two sisters. And so this provides me with a unique intersection to be able to share some of my personal experiences and also some things that we've been able to gather from the clinic with a lot of our clients based on some of their experiences. So I'm going to see if I can bring this up, these slides up. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so again, we're doing a little bit of a deeper dive into the mental health challenges and experiences of the father, the son, and the brother. Going to the next slide, I'm going to be looking at this from a triangulation of thoughts, feelings, and reactions. When we look at mental health, we really look at mental, behavioral, and emotional illnesses, disorders, and challenges. And so the triangulation of thinking first and feeling and reacting, we're going to look exactly at how fathers, sons, and brothers experience their manhood, their masculinity, and how mental health has become a little bit of a road bump for them. The definition is just a really good understanding for all of us in terms of thinking is the process of using one's mind to consider reason about something. Feeling is an emotional state or reaction. It is a belief, especially a vague or irrational one, or it is the process of showing emotion or sensitivity, and then reacting to change in response to a stimulus, which is what we all do, of course, and then to exert a reciprocal or counteracting force or influence. So thoughts, feelings, and reactions are how we're going to look at fathers, sons, and brothers. So, in terms of the father, many men enter the role of fatherhood as a mosaic of broken pieces. Of course, men, we first start off as boys and we go through different adverse childhood experiences. Some of us may come from single parent households, some of us may come from two parent households, and some of those parents sometimes actually suffer from their own mental challenges and mental illnesses that they may have not gotten treatment or care for. So, many men are entering adulthood, relationships, fatherhood, and marriage, kind of taking some of these broken pieces and putting them back together as much as possible for ourselves and presenting ourselves as whole. However, we know that the standard expectation is really more of an evolving expectation of men in the fatherhood role and marriage as well, is a provision and protection. Now, what that looks like, provision, we automatically think that provision is just money, providing finances, and we look at protection as being physically, being able to physically secure the family, the home, etc. But we understand that is a more expansive experience for men. Provision is not only just finances; it is providing emotional support within the home, transporting children back and forth to school, engaging in extracurricular activities. Providing is literally being present within a child's life. And that's something that we really want to make sure that we're placing value on, in addition to providing financial resources and protection, not only protecting of the home, but protecting of the partner, protecting the emotions and the feelings of the children, protecting the emotions, the psychological aspect, spirituality, etc. So that is our responsibility, and that's the expectation of men to be able to provide protection and provision. And what this looks like before we create a family as men and as fathers, there's a lot of career building that must take place. There's a lot of vision planning, and of course, financial preparation to prepare a home for others to enter. And so these are thoughts that are going through a father's mind. When you have a first-time dad, and that initial shock, it is coming from, oh goodness, life is getting ready to change. I have to be able to save some money. I got to be able to have a home, insurance, a car, and it just starts to feel like a whirlwind. And so when you see the initial emotional response of men to newborns and pregnancy, it can throw us in a little bit of a loop. All right, but it is we're going to talk about some recommendations of what men can do towards the end of each slide. What we also have to recognize is that is not a panic response. It is more or less a psychological response to a new thing that we're not used to. All right, so in terms of feelings, the pressure to win, just within men in general, especially over here in America, the pressure to win and achieve high levels of success and what that equates to for your potential family is of utmost, it's a high premium, right? There's always competition. We're always trying to get a leg up on one another. And we're always comparing ourselves to other people. So a lot of those internal thoughts and feelings that we do have, and whether or not we are adequate enough, to be able to be a father, if we're going to be the type of father that we did not have, or if we can actually measure up to the type of parent that we did have growing up. Discipline, or the lack thereof, will have an impact on a man's success and determine the wealth of his relationships. And so, again, a lot of this is in the foundational preparation stage and making sure that we are the type of man that we want to be able to be within our homes, to lead our homes, and also to be really good role models for our children. The compound effect of stress, and what that looks like is you may have things that's going on at work, and then you may have some challenges going on at home, and then your child may get in trouble at school, and then you may have some issues going on with your wife, and just the compound effect of stress just piles up and piles up and piles up. And that's when we see men start to engage in some unhealthy coping. You see them not being at home as much, because what is creating, supposed to be creating happiness for us, is actually creating a high level of stress. And then, of course, comparison to other fathers. Yes, comparison to other fathers, it is highly important for us to understand that it's impossible, for us not to compare ourselves to other people. And that pressure as well, is very challenging in terms of being able to be the type of fathers that we want to be within the homes. And so our reactions, the reactions are: one, stress responses for fathers typically include isolation and feelings of withdrawal. Typically, a man will kind of go to his man cave, his basement, the garage. It's a safe space for him to be able to process his thoughts, be able to detach away from some of the stressors that are, coming from as a result of being a parent, sometimes a new parent, and just being able to withdraw, to kind of get a little bit of control back over your life is very important. But that's what that isolation and withdrawal looks like. Emotional outbursts. Sometimes we get agitation, irritability, yelling, etc. All right. Unhealthy coping, when we start seeing men that are drinking a little bit more, going to the bar, may start dabbling into cigarette smoking, marijuana usage. Here in America, we have a very, very, very high risk of addiction to prescription pills, because we have a opioid epidemic. Unhealthy sexual behavior. All these things are forms of unhealthy coping, just to be able to feel really good in the moment. A lack of transparency with others, and also a disconnect between expectations and reality. So this is typically how men respond when they don't have the proper emotional support, when they're in that fatherhood stage. And so for the son, we know that fathers, of course, they start off as boys and they come up in these homes as sons. Some homes, are really healthy two-parent households. Some are not. All right. And so in terms of the thoughts and the feelings and the reactions of the son, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but understanding life, society and the world at large determines their own place within this entire thing that we're doing called life, right? Understanding who they are, what the world is, and what their place is very important. Young men also are exploring life through their boyhood. So whether that's their physicality, their mentality, or their emotions, really understanding what it means to be a boy in relation to girls, just like Vaughn was saying earlier. But then also, what is that like in relation to other boys and other men? Competition and social development is of high importance for young men, in terms of how they present themselves in school, in terms of their the way they can compete with other students, other kids in athletics. That is how boys measure their thoughts and their belief in their self. Self-esteem, confidence, efficacy, optimism, hope, and resiliency have to be taught at this age. We would like to think that all of our children come out and they're just perfect children that have all the things that they need. No, these things actually have to be taught to boys: how to have high self-esteem. What's the difference between confidence and arrogance? Efficacy in your belief in yourself. Can you be optimistic and hopeful? Can you have resiliency when things go bad? We must make sure that we are planting those seeds in young men as early as possible, so that they can be germinated and fostered over time, so that we can create healthier men. Self-identity in relation to other men within the family is also very paramount. In terms of the feelings of young boys, the impact of trauma, adverse childhood experiences, and also the built environment does have an impact on a boy or a son's ability and his belief in himself. How boys are taught to process their emotions, very important as well, as we just said earlier. Most boys are conditioned to believe that their tears don't matter as much as girls. And this is a really important point. Simply because when we see men that are unable to express themselves emotionally, that's not just because that man has an issue within his own character or personality. A lot of these things are taught to us as young boys in terms of not crying as much, right? Stop crying. You know, be hard, be tough, don't act like a punk. Things like that are really taught to boys in terms of not being soft as a survival skill. And so, what that also teaches us is that when it comes to expressing ourselves and expressing our emotions in just a very natural way, we are conditionally taught that our tears are not that important. And so, as we become men, it is hard for us to be able to value that emotional reaction in other people as well. All right. And also, lastly, we must be very keen on what is appropriate feeling for boys across cultures and different ethnicities. All right. And in terms of reactions, I just want to read a quote really quickly. And some of you all have heard this before. The child who is not embraced by the village will be sure to burn it down in order to feel its warmth. And this is a proverb that simply means that children desperately need connection, love, and community. If these needs are not met, they will cry out for help and even resort to destructive behavior. And as members of a village, we're all responsible for the children, especially these young men that are all around us. And finally, the brother. The brother is really interesting because the brother could be biological or it could be someone that is a brother in experience. A lot of times we call brothers the strong friend, right? You know, but also we understand that brothers can be a not so strong friend as well. And so it's important for us to understand that brothers could be blood related, experience related, whether it's through sports, the military, going to school, the fraternity that you've joined. I don't have any biological brothers, but all the men that I started off school with at Morehouse 22 years ago, all of us have stayed friends over the years. We actually have our homecoming coming up this weekend, and we stayed in contact every single day for a number of years, for decades now. And I let them know frequently, hey, you guys are my brothers, and I depend on you. Okay. But brothers have to understand the role of being a friend, a supporter, a caregiver, and also a comrade. Also, brothers have to have a level of experience in regards to protection and provision. There's a level of expectation that brothers are able to provide protection of their friends, of their brothers, provision, security. You know, right when brothers are in places of need, it's a caregiver role, and a lot of brothers really don't understand that until they're placed into that position by siblings or by close friends. And also, brothers are in a role of teaching, and teaching others requires healthy thoughts. Okay. In terms of feelings, the reason why connectivity between men and brothers is important is because we feel what our brothers feel. True empathy does come from men, and it's unlocked when our conversations are had with one another. It's often said that men don't talk about their feelings, men do not express themselves, but I would like to say it's a little bit different. Men do express themselves and we are very emotive, but we do it in our own ways. It may not look in the same way that women may express themselves, but if you could be a fly on the wall in conversations between men, I can promise you, you will realize there's a high level of transparency. Male empathy results in less fear of emotional reactions or judgment because many of them have actually been there. So again, we are a lot more apt to open up to our friends or other men that have had shared experiences because we know that there's not going to be a lot of judgment or an emotional explosive response that we may experience with our female counterparts. And then lastly, brothers can be healthy outlets. However, many choose to be destructive outlets. And what I mean by that is everybody's not your friend, right? And we know that. Some people that can be very close to you, you know, at some point the friendships may end because they may be engaging in their own destructive behavior. All right. And so it's important for us that are men, that are brothers, that do have, you know, people that are under our wings. It's important for us to make sure that we are healthy outlets, that we listen to receive, not to respond, and that we don't cause any additional chaos in our brothers' lives. All right. Recognizing the humanity in terms of reactions, recognizing the humanity in others begins with recognizing the man within us. So I guess this is the message to men that are listening. You know, there is nothing that we can do for others in terms of love, respect, or even just seeing value in other people if we are not able to see that within ourselves first. Okay. And so this is more of a call to you, you know, tap into the love that you have for yourself, self-love, your self-respect, your self-efficacy. Right. When we do those things, it becomes a lot easier and natural for us to be able to show those things to other people. And then also, this is just a huge part of the paradigm shift that we are seeing within men in terms of wellness and self care. All right. So, about 30 seconds, I'm going to provide a few suggestions and recommendations for individuals that are in each stage. Number one, for men that are fathers, I highly recommend going through some type of leadership development. Okay. Some men actually have never been placed in a position of leadership until they are in their 20s or 30s and they now have to lead a family. All right. And we know that with no experience comes no wisdom. And so it may actually be important to engage in some type of leadership development, whether it's an actual program, whether it's just counsel from someone that you trust, or whether it's just having conversations with someone that you actually respect that's been where you're getting ready to go. But it is so important to not go into fatherhood completely alone and completely without any level of wisdom. Having connectivity with others, we just talked about that in the brother section, and understanding that wellness for men is a real thing. Five coping areas that all individuals needed to be able to tap into, but especially men: your physical, your emotional, your social, your philosophical, spiritual, or cultural, and then lastly, the life and family. All right. No, excuse me. Last one is cognitive. I apologize about that. But then also life and family is impacted by all of those. And then also being a king of one's kingdom. And what I mean by that is, often as men, we like to go and fix problems for a lot of people. As fathers, we like to be hands-on and make sure and prevent that everything goes right and prevent any type of accidents or wrongdoings by our children. Right. But we have to understand that it is so important for us to focus on the people that we're supposed to focus on and not everyone in the world. Okay. We understand that fathers and men have great leadership abilities and can have impact on so many other folks, but that does lead to stress and burnout. We want to make sure we're focusing on the kingdom first. And then lastly, setting boundaries in relationships. Right. I always tell my clients there's one word that's two letters. And if you put a period behind it, it is a sentence. And that word is no. Right. No can actually come without a whole bunch of explanation. And if we set healthy boundaries, then people are actually able to see how they need to interact and treat us a little bit more appropriately. All right. Regarding the sons, it's just very important for us to activate the village, right? We just said that if the boy doesn't feel the warmth of the village, he'll be sure to burn it down to feel that warmth. We must activate the village early and often, getting them involved in sports programs, Boy Scouts, mentoring, surrounding them with other authority figures so that they can understand and learn discipline from individuals that you trust and respect as well. All right. And then having conversations, fathers, have these conversations with your sons, mothers, have conversations with your sons, especially when it comes to teaching them and providing them with space to understand their emotions, express themselves appropriately, model appropriate behavior for them, and also give them opportunities to succeed. Very, very important for sons. And then lastly, for brothers, I think some of that, some of the suggestions or recommendation that we made for the fathers, I guess, tapping into your personal wellness, right? Having a wellness plan, having a wellness approach for yourself, really advocating for this new generation of men's mental health and understanding that no, men are just not here just to work, pay bills, and then, protect the home. We are human beings. We grew up in the same homes as young girls, right? And so the same humanity that we're able to see in young girls, we must see in young boys as well. And that way we have healthier men that are able to lead families, lead marriages, lead parenting, and also lead their community. So what I'm going to do is actually bring the PowerPoint down now, and we have I think about 10 more minutes left for any types of questions and answers or questions that may be in the comments. So we can also bring Vaughn Mosher back up as well.
Thank you.
All right, so I do believe that we had a couple of comments. Let's see. This may have been for you, Vaughn. It says Bermuda has always been a very difficult country to capture stats.
Yeah.
Outside of the BHB stats, there is never a clear number of overall people suffering from mental illness, i.e., private entities, private care, and such a transient population. I expect the numbers are far more. Any thoughts or feedback on that?
Yeah, that certainly was my difficulty in putting anything together that wasn't, it was so disaggregated and in silos that I didn't feel it would be meaningful. So that's why I went to global data and then positioned Bermuda in where I can. I mean, I just had to leave so much on the cutting floor with holding constant for age and race and gender. There's some really interesting data that is emerging and all kinds of research implications for Bermuda. So I think we did the best we can, and Vaughn, that's why I am so looking forward to what I think is coming tomorrow afternoon. With Scott Pearman is at the Bermuda Hospitals Board and
yes,
his assistant CEO. So he's totally involved with healthcare, both medical health, surgical, and mental our mental hospital as well. So,
Gotcha. Here in Atlanta, of course, Emory University is located here.
mm,
The Center for Disease Control, Morehouse School of Medicine, Georgia Tech, just made, and then the University of Georgia is about an hour away from Atlanta. Major research institutions, and you would think that we would just have a huge public database with all this information that will be able to capture specifically the mental health and mental illnesses of residents just in the Metro Atlanta area. Vaughn, when I tell you that we literally have to piecemeal several different small behavioral health reports that aren't even aggregated, by the major research institutions, simply because the conversation on mental health, even though it is a medical specialty that's been around for 300-400 years here in America, the
absolutely.
conversation is in its infancy, especially when it comes to looking at all communities globally and us being one human being. So kind of give me an idea on that in terms of what that looks like in Bermuda as well.
Well, it's we back over almost 30 years ago, Yale was here and put what now has become the Child Development Program, and infants or by age 2 were being looked at and studied, and data was captured with the hope that 15, 20, 30 years later, those same individuals, because we're such a small population of 72,000, we would be able to see in a longitudinal way what indicators are observable early on that then manifest given the environmental aspects. And so, I have had great hopes for that kind of longitudinal study here. Because we're so small, we can manage some pretty significant research. But I'm surprised to hear you say that you've had to sort of piece things together as well with all the resources you have in the US of A.
Absolutely. Silos is the standard of how we operate a lot. This organization is going to study this info. This organization is going to study a completely different thing, but we know if we have some integration, right? The integration of data. That's why I do love electronic health records, because we can now follow the health history of an individual and not just be self-report every time they get in front of a new practitioner. There was another question here in the comments. I think this is a really good question, right? In looking at men, what about the data within the LGBTQIA community, right? The intersectionality of being minority, Black, and gay, and its impact on men's mental health. Are we at that place within research and in the field of mental health to be able to have that data readily available, or are we still kind of doing a 20th century approach to data collection with specific communities?
The short answer is no, with an exclamation point.
Right.
We're a fairly, I guess, comparatively to other jurisdictions, we're a fairly homophobic community, although that's changing some. All the information that I would have or we would have collectively would be anecdotal. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing to my awareness. There is a group, not about the LGBTQ community, but there is an organization that I've just discovered in my research locally that's called what is it? MASC for the first 4 letters of what masculine would be, and that I found that through looking at what we had in Bermuda for men and treatment, and that is there. It's a group of 3 Black males treating other males, and I would expect that would be irrespective of race. But that is very exciting for me as well. I've tried to get in touch with them, but I think it may very well be just portions of each day that they're available. But that's just been within the last 2 weeks. But there are exciting things I think about to happen. You sort of feel it in the community now that we're coming out the other side of COVID. We had 40% more utilization in our EAP through COVID. Right. And coming out the other side of that with Zoom, I think there's a real exuberance for looking at mental health issues far more dramatically in a positive, impactful way than we've ever had before. So it's a renaissance for me.
Gotcha. And just given the perspective from here in Atlanta, Atlanta has always coined itself as, well, not always, let me take that back. Since about the 1980s, Atlanta has coined itself as the city too busy to hate. All right. And that was in
Yeah.
response to the civil rights era, being in the South, but wanting to position itself as a global city. And so from the business perspective, Atlanta has done a really, really, really good job on putting a nice tailored suit, button down in a tie onto the image of the city.
There
Right.
you go.
However, when we start to cut through, and I'm born and raised here in Atlanta, my family's been here for over 100 years. The experience of people from Atlanta and of Atlanta, right, is not necessarily parallel to the image of what most people see. And so, to kind of bring that back to the question about, does the city support, the LGBTQIA community? On the surface, it does. However, when it gets to, and you do have, let me take this back. I don't want to just bury our city's approach. You have a lot of nonprofits and non-government organizations that are directly affiliated and have direct to consumer services, right? For that community. However, just when it goes back to the data, I do believe that technology is going to be what helps us to kind of close a lot of gaps, whether it's through telehealth, right? Telehealth has eliminated a huge access gap. We're able to bring services right to individuals that are in need, right?
Yes.
And I think that the integration of like bringing data to the everyday person, right? And not to, data has been used to manipulate folks' perceptions on things, but bringing data to the everyday person so that they can know in real time how something is impacting them in their community, I think is going to be very important. I do believe that technology is going to be part of that change moving forward. All right, we have about 5 minutes left. We have one more question. I do want to ask that really quickly, and then I want to leave about at least 2 minutes for us to be able to, provide any contact information and how people can get in touch with us. All right.
I'd like to piggyback before the end. I'd like to piggyback on some of the things you said as well. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. Lastly, do you think that we should improve with our statistical approach in Bermuda to quote unquote fix what we know is broken?
Don't know. I don't know. What would you do with that? That stymies me. I can see it, 3 or 4 different ways.
Right. The way that the way that problems are solved is first being able to identify a problem, right? And then figuring out how to create a solution without spending huge amounts of money on just an idea. So prototyping is very important. I think it is very, very, very important for us to go towards a problem within certain communities as opposed to just saying, ugh, that's a problem, not sure how to fix it. It's like moving a mountain, you're right. We try to fix it. That doesn't work. We try another approach. In terms of data collection, again, I think it goes back to technology and leveraging the right type of platforms, especially with artificial intelligence. I think that'll be able to help us secure information a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I agree entirely. I'm thinking too, anecdotally about some of the things that are coming up, what you just said, and then some of these other questions about looking at males, about antisocial behaviors and so on. I wish we had something other than antisocial as a label or in our language, because it's pejorative and yet the very behavior of it is reflective of something that we can really get under and I think work with constructively. For instance, just in the relationship work that we do, and to piggyback on what you were talking about in terms of openness, honesty, trust, emotionality of men, I work with a lot of men here in this practice, old, young, black and white, singular as individuals, and also as part of a relationship or an intimate relationship or marriage. And I can tell you, working with the male when he is with his partner versus working with him when he is on his own with me, it's almost as if it's another person. It's so dramatically different in terms of the openness, the getting in touch with emotions, accurately sharing those emotions, and then getting to work construct-wise as to what might be different in terms of the behavior attached to those emotions. So, there's something going on. I don't know how global that is, But I can tell you in this community, males don't express themselves nearly as well as I know they can when they're alone one-to-one. They don't express themselves as thoroughly as they might when they're with their partner, usually of an opposite gender.
Gotcha. Well, Vaughn, we have definitely reached the end of our presentation. It has been a joy to be able to work with you and preparing this for the Moving Forward Together conference. Thank you so much. And like I said earlier on, Vaughn and Vaughn in the morning, first ever collaboration with this. Thank you so much for you all joining us, and we'll make sure we see you all next year.
I'd like to invite you here and get you into some knee socks and Bermuda shorts.
Absolutely. Please do.
All right.
It's getting cold here in Atlanta.
Very
Take care.
good. All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Vaughn and Vaughn in the morning. I love it. Thank you guys so much for your insight and your expertise. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback coming in. Thank you guys so much.